Good morning everyone. Basa na tayo na ating libro guys. Kapwa ko Pilipino, magbasa na tayo ng ating history book. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 24th February 2023. History of the Filipino People Part 5, The Warriors. Topic number 22, The Japanese Occupation. Nandito na tayo sa paragraph Reorganization of the Government. Basa. Reorganization of the government. On January 3, 1942, a day after Manila became an occupied city, the Commander-in-Chief of the Japanese Imperial Forces, General Masaharu Homa, issued a proclamation announcing the end of the American occupation and the purpose of the Japanese expedition. The avowed purpose was to emancipate the Filipinos, from the oppressive domination of the USA, letting you establish the Philippines for the Filipinos as a member of the prosperity sphere in the Greater East Asia, and making you enjoy your own prosperity and culture. During the first month of the occupation, the status of the provinces and chartered cities remained practically the same as during the Commonwealth years. By February, the Japanese were ready to institute sweeping reforms in the administration of the government. On January 23, Homa issued an order to George B. Vargas, making him the chairman of the Executive Commission. The national government was renamed the Central Administrative Organization, composed of 6 executive departments: Interior, Finance, Justice, Agriculture, and Commerce, Education, Health and Public Welfare, and Public Works and Communications. Each of the departments was headed by a commissioner whose duty was to execute an administration within his jurisdiction under the control of the chairman of the Executive Commission. The limitations upon the powers and prerogatives of the commissioners were assured for the Japanese when the same order provided that its department shall have a Japanese advisor and Japanese assistant advisors. It is pretty clear that the Japanese advisors were nothing more than spies of the Japanese military authorities. To make sure that apparently harmless persons were to take the reins of government, the order further provided that Vargas' recommendation for the commissionership of any department or for any subordinate position was to be approved by the Japanese Commander-in-Chief. The organization of each department and the courts of justice was to remain substantially the same as during the Commonwealth, provided that their outlines be approved by the Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Japanese Forces. On the provincial and municipal level, the order provided for the status quo. To aid the Central Administrative Organization in administering the occupied territory, the Council of State was created on January 29 as an advisory body. The structure of the central government then may be represented as follows. Central Administrative Organization. Naka-drawing siya guys. So, naka-drawing yan. Central Administrative Organization. Chairman of the Executive Commission. Interior, Justice, Finance, Agriculture, Education, Health, and Welfare. Tapos, under naman ng Education, Health and Public Welfare is Public Works and Communications. Ay, meron pa pala. Sorry. Hindi siya under ha. Kahilira pala. Ulitin ko ha. Central Administrative. Maliit kasi kaya hindi siguro kasya. Di nilagay sa ibaba pero doon siya karugtong siya sa unang line. Central Administrative Organization. Chairman of the Executive Commission. Interior, Justice, Finance, Agriculture and Commerce, Education, Health and Public Welfare, Public Works and Communications. Oh, mayroon pa pala Council of State. Council of State. Tapos, lahat sila dito nakalagay sa Japanese advisors. Yung Interior, Justice, Finance, Agriculture and Commerce, Education, Health and Public Welfare, Public Works and Communications, under siya, na diretso siya sa Japanese Advisors, Council of State. Educational reorientation. The Japanese educational policy was embodied in Military Order No. 2 dated February 17, 1942. Its basic points were the propagation of Filipino culture, the dissemination of the principle of the Greater East Asia co-prosperity, the spiritual rejuvenation of the Filipinos, the teaching and propagation of Nippongo, the diffusion of vocational and elementary education, and the promotion of labor. The motive behind the educational policy was not only to create an atmosphere friendly to Japanese intentions and war aims, but also to erase the Western cultural influences, particularly British and American, on Filipino life and culture. To carry out this policy, the Japanese Commander-in-Chief instructed the Commissioner of Education, Health, and Public Welfare to reopen the schools, requiring at the same time that teachers and students be made to pledge themselves to the support of the new educational policy. Priority was given to the reopening of elementary schools, obviously because the Japanese believed that the mind of the young could be easily molded into the patterns of the Japanese concept. Next to the elementary schools, priority was given to the reopening of vocational and normal schools and those institutions of higher learning giving courses in agriculture, medicine, fisheries, and engineering. The courses leading to the law degree were not reopened because the Japanese military authorities thought that under the circumstances, lawyers were useless. The only worthy courses were those they believed could help in the prosecution of Japan's concept of the Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. In accordance with Japanese mandates, the Department of Education, Health, and Public Welfare authorized on March 31, 1942, the reopening of public elementary schools beginning in June 1942. There was not much enthusiasm in returning to schools, first because the Filipinos as a whole were suspicious of Japanese intention, and second because the children found more enjoyment and money in selling anything or in helping their parents tide over the difficult times. This lack of enthusiasm to receive instruction under the Japanese regime was reflected in the comparative smallness of the enrollment. The total enrolled in elementary grades as of March 1943 was 267,977. When the Japanese-sponsored republic was proclaimed on October 14, 1943, the educational setup did not change much. However, President Laurel added the fundamental principle of militant nationalism. It was Laurel's belief that the Filipinos could stave off spiritual debacle only by resorting to nationalism as a way of life. Consequently, he encouraged the propagation of Tagalog as the national language by using it as the official language. Educational reforms were instituted by requiring teachers to obtain licenses after undergoing a rigid examination. The teaching of Tagalog, Philippine history, and character education was reserved for Filipinos. Teachers' licenses were also required of all heads of schools, colleges, and universities. Laurel also required that majority of the government board of any school, college, or university be Filipino citizens. All these were directed at the implementation of the nationalist credo. For the first time in Philippine history, the aliens were barred from teaching the Filipinos their own history, a history that had been hitherto interpreted according to alien points of view. Tingnan ko lang kung mahaba yung The Republic. Kasi 3 minutes na lang ang oras natin eh. Ba't ganun? Ang hirap na ngayon maano nitong pages. Sa sobrang kalumaan. Ayan na niya ma-open. Okay. The Republic. Basa. The Republic, the Japanese authorities realized that it was difficult, if not impossible, to channel Filipino sympathy toward them and consequently did everything in their power, from threats to courage, to dissipate the Filipinos' hostility. It was important to them for propaganda purposes that the Filipinos were made to believe that Japan's intention was to see the Philippines become a republic. Consequently, as early as January 21, 1942, Premier Hideki Toshio, in an address before the Japanese Imperial Diet, said, Japan will gladly grant the Philippines its independence so long as it cooperates and recognizes Japan's program of establishing a Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. This promise was reiterated on January 28 when he addressed the House of Peers. He said substantial progress is being made in the degree of cooperation rendered to the Japanese Empire by the people of the Philippines, as well as in the restoration of peace and security under these circumstances, and on condition that further tangible evidence of cooperation is actively demonstrated. It is contemplated to put into effect the statement made previously on the question of Philippine independence in the shortest time possible. The Filipino leaders were, however, not fooled by these empty promises. Nevertheless, they went into the motion of rejoicing over the announcement of Philippine independence. On January 30, 1943, George B. Vargas pledged support of the Filipinos in the attainment of independence, and on February 8, a rigid demonstration of gratitude to Japan for the promise of early independence was held in Manila. Not to be outdone in the staging of the Grand Comedy, the Council of State with tongue-in-cheek issued a manifesto on February 26, exhorting the people to exert all efforts towards the fulfillment of independence. The committee went on and on, with Premier Toshio speaking on May 6 before the helpless masses of men and women of the new Luneta, saying that Japan would help the Filipinos emerge from the chaos and turmoil of the past regime into the glorious national existence of the new. Back in Tokyo, the Premier told the Imperial Diet that we wish to go further and declared that we will accord the honor of independence to the Philippines before the year was out. The announcement was the cue to the Filipino officials to make preparations for the event. On June 18, the KALIBAPI, Kapisanan sa Paglilingkod sa Bagong Pilipinas, was instructed to form the Preparatory Commission for Philippine Independence. The KALIBAPI promptly announced the composition of the body the next day. It was organized on June 20 with Jose P. Laurel as President and Benigno S. Aquino and Ramon Agoncillo as Vice Presidents. The Commission then prepared the draft of the proposed Constitution, which was approved on September 4 and ratified by a popular convention 2 days later. The Constitution provided for a unicameral National Assembly whose delegates were chosen on September 20. The restudied enthusiasm over the approaching independence was now climbing to its climax. On September 25, the National Assembly elected Jose P. Laurel President of the future Republic. Amidst the simulated applause and hurrahs of the Filipinos audience who had no choice in the matter, the Declaration of Independence was read. The Republic inaugurated and President Laurel inducted into office October 14, 1943. Thinking of a common effort to save the country from the tragedy that had befallen it, Laurel concluded his inaugural address with these words: I am sure our people will rise as one to meet the challenge. We shall encounter difficulties greater than any we have ever faced in our national history. We shall have to adapt ourselves to the strange stimuli of a new environment and undergo the troubles of constant adjustment and readjustment. God helping us, we shall march with steady, resolute steps forward without doubt, vacillation, or fear. There shall be no tarrying on the way, no desertion from the ranks, no stragglers left behind. Together we shall work hard, work still harder, work with all our might, and work as we have never worked before. The Japanese authorities might not have known it, but the last sentence of Laurel's inaugural address was pregnant with resolve to demolish all barriers, including Japanese interference standing in the way of real independence. His significant sentence, every drop, every trickle of individual effort shall be grooved into the single channel of common endeavor until they grow into a flowing stream, a rushing cataract, a roaring torrent, a raging flood, hurdling all difficulties and demolishing all barriers in the way of our single purpose and common determination to make our independence stable, lasting, and real. Bukas na itong for economic conditions, guys. Bye everyone. God bless.